Vince McMahon's past is definitely catching up to him. But are there other incidents in his past, say the Dawn Marie wrongful termination suit, that are directly related to his current lawsuit? Vince McMahon is in massive trouble, and the company he built is taking straight bullets, especially that one guy that everybody fears, the beast incarnate, Brock Lesnar. Who knew he was such a beast outside the ring? With the Janelle Grant lawsuit making the headlines of every newspaper and wrestling podcast, WWE is now desperate to sway the fans by giving us Rock and Roman at WrestleMania 40. Yeah, I don't know if lowballing your top babyface was the move, but that's another story. Well, you might ask, Vince isn't even in the company. He wasn't even in TKO anymore. So how would this lawsuit still massively affect the WWE? Janelle Grant's lawsuit will serve as the floodgate for all of the complaints, not just against Vince, but all the people involved, and will reopen old wounds, including one of the very first women to take the fight up against the company, WWE's former diva, Dawn Marie. In today's video, we're going to reveal how Dawn Marie's lawsuit almost 20 years ago was just the starting point to Vince McMahon's legal troubles, and how his former WWE diva's lawsuit is linked to Janelle Grant's lawsuit against Vince McMahon. We're also going to reveal the true reason she never came back to the WWE. If you've been an avid fan of the WWE since the early 2000s, you know that there's only been two divas carrying the entire SmackDown's women division, Tori Wilson and Dawn Marie. If you haven't seen my video on Dawn Marie's career in the WWE, go ahead and click the link in the description box below, or the link here in the top right corner. It'll give you all the details on Dawn Marie's wrestling highlights and where she's at today. Dawn Marie worked for the WWE for 3 solid years, appearing on the Blue brand almost every single week. But in 2005, Dawn's relationship with the WWE suddenly soured. News broke out, and Dawn was just unceremoniously fired from the WWE. Well, did you know why she got fired? Because she was pregnant. That's right, for WWE, there's no maternity leave or something. No, if you're pregnant, you get fired, apparently. Dawn Marie told the WWE execs that she was pregnant on a Tuesday, and on a Friday of the same week, she was fired.
I told them on a Tuesday. Friday, I was done.
Wow. On the surface, you can speculate why she was terminated from the WWE, but let's just take a look at what Dawn Marie did for the WWE. Dawn Marie is famously known for her physical attractiveness, as well as her promiscuity in the ring and during her promos. She was known, and still is known quite frankly, as a sex symbol in the WWE world. To announce that she was pregnant must have set off some alarm bells to the WWE front office, and they didn't have a storyline for a Dawn Marie who was pregnant. But in an interview with Renee Dupree, she gets real candid on how the WWE could have used her pregnancy as a storyline.
I said, I'm a raging slut. I'll do anything you ask me to do, like, in the ring. Right. You don't have a storyline for me? I'm pregnant. Whose baby is it?
Right.
Dawn Marie is absolutely right in her interview. There are so many different ways the WWE could have spun her pregnancy. She was a star for the WWE, and it really made no sense to fire her unless something else was going on. But Dawn did not back down without a fight. She took it to court for wrongful termination after she was promised that her job was safe. And I think we all know that Dawn Marie ultimately settled her suit with the WWE. But did that lawsuit have everything that really happened backstage? Was it everything that Dawn complained to the WWE, or is it linked with Janelle Grant's latest lawsuit against Vince McMahon? What was the true reason Dawn was terminated? Before her stint in the WWE, Dawn Marie was a well-known wrestler for her work in Extreme Championship Wrestling, being the manager of Lance Storm. She even became the promotion's color commentator at some point. Then, after ECW declared bankruptcy in 2001, Dawn Marie found a new home in 2002, and guess where? The World Wrestling Federation. There's just one problem though. The women's division back then wasn't exactly the women's division we have today. Today, women's wrestling is arguably on top of its game. You can even say that the Women's Royal Rumble this year was better than the men's. Back then, the women's division was more like a sideshow, just for eye candy. You have the most hilarious storylines in that time's women's division, not to mention those occasional bikini contests and bra and panties matches. And Dawn Marie, unfortunately, got swept right in. After her move to the WWE, from the get-go, you just knew who who's running the show, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Dawn Marie's first job, Vince's personal assistant. She even briefly feuded with Vince's previous assistant, Stacy Keibler, with both women trying to win over the chairman. One thing you need to know about this business, especially in Vince's era, is that in order to last long, you had to be a yes man. You needed to follow orders, and that's what Dawn did. After her feud with Stacy Keibler, Dawn Marie then began her controversial feud with Tori Wilson, which, well, lasted for almost her entire stint with the WWE. It was a never-ending feud that got weirder and weirder the longer it went. I'm gonna give you a warning. This could be a bumpy ride. It all started in 2002 when Dawn got tangled up with Tori Wilson because Dawn had developed a relationship with Tori's father, Al, which Tori obviously disapproved of. Then at some point in the feud, Dawn invited Tori into a hotel room, and if Tori accepted, Dawn would break the engagement with her dad. Then things took a turn. On the Armageddon pay-per-view, video footage was shown with the two of them inside the hotel room. It was a 6-minute video that felt straight out of an X-rated movie. There's a lot of stripping and kissing over there, but we're not going to dive into those details. If you want to hear more about Dawn Marie's crazy diva encounters, you can watch our video on Dawn Marie's career. Click the link in the top right corner or the link in the description box below. If this were released in the modern WWE, the company would be getting some serious heat from the mainstream media for sure. But the thing is, years later, Dawn Marie would later share what exactly happened behind the scenes of that controversial clip at Armageddon. Dawn revealed that the clip should not have been released at Armageddon. It was supposed to be on just a regular episode of SmackDown, but Vince had a different idea. Then, right after she and Tori did the scene in the hotel room, Dawn saw Vince smirking at her, and even said that he was not satisfied with what he saw, so he asked Tori and Dawn to do it again. With Vince watching, Tori and Dawn did the scene once again, which would later be seen in the pay-per-view. And that's not the only thing that Dawn was forced to do. Well, after all of that, Dawn Marie and Tori Wilson's father, who was like 100 years old at the time, actually got married on SmackDown in their freaking underwear. Yes, you heard that right, they got married while in their underwear. Good job, Vince. Then on their honeymoon, are you ready to hear this? Dawn's new husband died on their honeymoon because of too much sex. Yes, too much honeymoon sex made Tori Wilson's father die. And this led to the very first stepdaughter versus stepmother at the 2003 Royal Rumble, which Tori won, finally ending their feud, which also included a lot of bikini contests. Yeah, after their feud, Dawn continued to be the main attraction on SmackDown and continued to do things that Vince told her to, especially that one episode of SmackDown where she flashed the crowd in a promo. I am sure the WWE Network won't have that video saved in their library. So now, after hearing those crazy storylines from the early 2000s and hearing about all of the crazy that Vince did to Janelle Grant, do you mean to tell me nothing like that happened to Dawn Marie? I find that very hard to believe. Dawn's career with the WWE consisted of a lot of storylines involving affairs and her doing sexy stuff to the delight of the crowd. She became side entertainment, and she wasn't the only one. Tori Wilson revealed once in a podcast that Vince pitched the idea of her going out to the crowd with only paint on her breasts, which she abruptly refused.
He wanted me to paint like what Sable did, paint some and walk out there naked. And I said no,
Then in 2005, things became worse. Dawn alerted the WWE that she was pregnant and could be out for several months. And after the WWE confirmed to her that she was going to retain her job, they fired her just days later. And the official statement of the WWE at that time? Creative had no ideas for her. And she still had 1 year left on her wrestling contract. Dawn took the fight to court for inappropriate termination. For the WWE, it was plain and simple. They fired Dawn because she could not do those sexy promos anymore. No more bikini contests or flashing the crowd. Speculation was that she even couldn't do any favors for Vince anymore. And Dawn Marie's story is just one of the many divas who have had their own stories with Vince in the WWE. And knowing the extent of Janelle Grant's sexual lawsuit against Vince McMahon, you just can't help but wonder, How many divas behind the scenes were treated like this by the diabolical Vince McMahon? Just look at this next example. Ashley Masaro. The 2005 Diva Search winner tragically passed away in 2019 when she committed suicide. Her lawyer, Konstantin Kairos, recently commented on Ashley's allegations that she was sexually assaulted in Kuwait in 2006 and was urged by the WWE upper management to keep it quiet. In an affidavit, Ashley's lawyer states that she was injected with a paralyzing drug and sexually assaulted by a person claiming to be a U.S. Army doctor while on tour with the WWE in 2006. Right around the same time, Dawn Marie had her own lawsuit. Ashley also claimed that Vince McMahon once told her to not let one bad experience ruin the work they have done with the military. And it sounds like John Laurinaitis, the head of WWE Talent Relations at the time, was aware of Ashley Masaro being assaulted and added that most of the upper-level management knew of the incident, but nothing was done about it. You can speculate that this incident, along with some other incidents involving Vince McMahon demanding she fly with him in his private jet, and Kevin Dunn basically forcing her to fly with Vince, is what potentially influenced Ashley Masaro to unfortunately take her own life a few years later. You can remember wrestlers, especially CM Punk's pipe bomb, saying that this company would be better if Vince McMahon were dead. Vince even put his own daughter, that's right, his own daughter, on promos that were borderline sexualizing Stephanie. Even Stephanie McMahon has some crazy stories with Vince. She even shared that Vince pitched her an idea of her having a relationship with him. Imagine your own biological father pitching that storyline. That's beyond mania. Janelle Grant's lawsuit and Dawn Marie's lawsuit have been reopened to speculation. Did Dawn Marie's lawsuit actually include sexual assault from Vince? Is it tied to Vince McMahon willingly stepping down as part of the WWE? Dawn Marie's lawsuit against the company settled in 2007 when the WWE compensated Dawn for a hefty amount of money. But then speculations were raised about the true nature of the lawsuit, which Dawn can't publicly talk about. Dawn Marie never came back to the WWE, and now the WWE has been caught in the middle of this new Vince McMahon lawsuit. Even though the former chairman was no longer in the WWE, this lawsuit created waves that shook the company. Brock's been written off at WrestleMania, and the company decided to bring back The Rock to cover all of these things up. And it feels like it's just a matter of time until a bigger name pops up, a bigger name that could bring down Vince McMahon for good. Once again, the floodgates are open. What are your thoughts on the allegations against former WWE CEO Vince McMahon? Do you think Dawn Marie is tied up in this entire scandal? Let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.